Hey everybody, welcome to After the Movies. I'm here with my good friends Will and Mariah, and today we're going to be talking about the movie Puss in Boots that we just talked about on Sunday for our At the Movies series. So thanks for being a part of this and being here with me, guys.
Stoked to be here.
All right, we're just going to talk and we're going to hang out. We're going to try and figure out some of the things that we learned from this and how we can dig in a little bit deeper into the story. One of the things that we've been saying during the At the Movies series is how these films, these stories, they have a way of connecting with our hearts, which ultimately speaks to the way God's designed us. And so it says something about God too. And so that's kind of what we're trying to unpack each week. So quick summary about what happened in Puss in Boots. I'm going to read for you guys. So cats, famously, they have 9 lives, right? And Puss in Boots, he lives his life frivolously to the point where he loses 8 of his lives. And now he's on his last life, desperately trying to escape the inevitability of death coming after him. And so his first attempt of escaping death, he goes and hides essentially in a retirement home for cats, right? Which is probably worse than death itself. It turned out to be worse. So the only solution that he finds is finding the wishing star so he could wish to get his lives back. So he goes through this ridiculous journey with his friends, Kitty Softpaws and little dog named Burrito, who's kind of ridiculous also. And against all odds and all adversaries, they go get his wish. But in the final moment, he gives up his wish and chooses friendship and love and faces his biggest fear alongside with his friends. So that's kind of the basic premise of the movie. So I'll kick it off for you guys. I'll share a little bit too, but what stood out to you all? What did you learn from this movie?
Want to go first?
No, you can go.
All right, cool. Well, I could talk about this movie like all day. Actually, it's really funny. I've been sharing with a lot of people that when we first were talking about this whole concept of Puss in Boots, like being a movie that was like worth checking out for this purpose, I was kind of going, okay, DreamWorks is cool, like Shrek and all that stuff, but I was like, it's not like it's like this could be sacrilegious, but it's like it's not Pixar, you know.
Yeah.
So I was a little bit kind of going, I don't know, what am I going to expect? It's just gonna be a bunch of slapsticky whatever. But actually, my buddy Tim here, he was like, no, dude, you gotta check out this movie. So my wife and I sat there. We went through a whole variety of movies on our date night, going, what do we want to watch? And after a whole bunch of times we settled on, you know what? Let's go check out Puss in Boots. And to our incredible surprise and my wife's surprise, we watched it and we were both like, this was a really freaking cool movie. Like it hit, the thing that I liked about it is that it hit the slapstick, sure, because and Antonio Banderas killed it as Puss in Boots. His like just everything about him was fantastic. But they had all the fun stuff that kids can access. They have kind of the gritty, like humor stuff that maybe like teenagers and other people who enjoy that like can access. But then there was this really deep meaning, the whole like death hunting him thing. So for me, it was the whole package of how it all combined that stood out to me as a big highlight.
Yeah, I was the same. I was not going to watch this movie. Even though we were doing it for movie night, all this stuff, I was not going to watch this movie. And then when Tim was like, oh, let's do this. I was
I'm so glad you guys are here to do this with me.
So I had to watch the movie. So I was like, oh, Lord. So when I sat down and watched it, it was really good. It kept me in there. I think one of my favorite parts, what gets me, like, I'm not like a horror or scary person, but suspense gets me. And I think death following him throughout the whole movie, like every time his eyes popped in, I was like,
that was sick, right? Like how they would just show up. Like I just remember the woods scene. And like the trees, kind of like, if y'all haven't seen the movie, you gotta go check it out. This isn't like, we're not being sponsored by DreamWorks, but like DreamWorks, you guys did a good job with this. This was really good. Like when he goes through the woods and it goes to the silhouette of the trees and it's just the red, like that. Like I was like, oh, that's some good editing.
Yeah.
So there's a part of me, the story to me that kind of stood out, which was how that like I felt like I could relate with. Where he probably knows that he's not living his life in the best way that he could be living it. And he's like allowing himself to do all these crazy things. And then comes a point where he's got this realization that like death is coming, essentially, literally and figuratively for him. And so he knows that he needs to have a change in perspective. And he has like this wake up call, even though he probably had that awareness before. Have you guys ever had that experience? Like, something had to happen for you to like just switch gears with your life?
Oh, yeah.
I say, yeah, I think a lot of people live like that. I think we live in this world that we don't realize that we're not immortal? Is immortal? Which one is the one that you? Either way, that we don't have like thousands of years on this planet, and so sometimes we live frivolously and we live without thought or purpose, and then when we realize like, oh man, like we have like we're not going to be here forever, like we all die. I think sometimes that happened like hard things in my life, like when my mom passed, or when people are like sick and stuff. I'm like, oh, we don't have too long on on this planet, so what are we going to do with the life that we do have? So I think I've had moments like that.
Yeah, I think through also the whole mindset of like maybe just the idea that sometimes there are things that happen in our lives that maybe we're guilty of that we know we need to change. It could be the way we prioritize things, speaking from experience. It could be how we treat our relationships, how we treat our kids, our parents. And you kind of shove it under the rug because you're like, oh, it's not that bad yet. Yeah. But on the reality, it's one of those things where, I mean, like to be fully just honest, like several years ago, like in my marriage, there was a time where it was, if you had asked me like, hey, on a scale of 1 to 10, where are you at? I'd be like, oh man, I'm rocking 11. This is we're like way up here. This is super cool.
And then you had a baby.
Like, this is before the baby. So it's like, oh yeah, we're at this 11. And then if you ask my wife and the same thing, she'd be like, we're at a 3. Yeah. I don't know what he's talking about. Yeah. And I didn't know that. I knew it, like if I sat there with my thoughts, which was a problem for me because I like to be hyper productive. I like to flood my mind with things. I don't want to sit in the moment. But if I sat in the moment, I would be like, oh, there's probably things I need to change. But I was moving a million miles a second and wasn't paying attention to the things that needed to be changed until, stuff happens. And like safe to say now, after going through a bunch of that stuff, like things are pretty wonderful now, but I had to go through it, similar to what Puss in Boots had to go through. He had to experience some of the worst to get to the best.
Yeah. I something that struck me that connects to this and connects to your story, even though the difference between how you and your wife reacts to the moment that you're in. In his message, Pastor Felipe, that he did on this movie, he talked about there's 2 mistakes that we can make. One is that we live carelessly with little awareness of death, or 2, we can live anxiously with the fear of death. Yeah. Right. So either we can live carelessly with little awareness of it, or we live anxiously with great fear of it. Which one do you guys lean towards? I know which one I do. I'm for sure. I mean, I have been, I think, most of my life towards carelessly. Like I'm young. I can do whatever I want. The chance of something bad happening to me feel very low, even though that's probably not reality. But I think that's probably how I've been living my life mostly.
I think I go back and forth. Like, I think I teeter-totter the middle. Like, there's some moments where I'm like, man, I am living very carelessly right now. And like, I need to be reeled in. But there's some moments where like, I'm so afraid that I'm not living, because I'm like, oh man, it's not long. So I teeter. Yeah.
I kind of like in the same vein. Like, it's kind of that there are those moments where I'm like, oh man, nothing can affect me. Like, it's cool. I'm in this prime of life. I can do whatever I want. But then other times where it's like, you sit there and you're like, oh, I'm not doing enough. But it's the risk is greater than the reward, my mind says. And so that I don't want to push it. So I don't know. We kind of bounce between. I guess that's,
Yeah. I thought it was interesting. The movie, I mean, obviously you're focusing primarily on the cat Puss, who's going after his last wish to go fulfill his personal desires. But then you have all these subplots of other characters who are also trying to get their wish, right? Everybody has kind of their motivation on the why. Was there any of those that stood out to you all?
I think, what was that pie guy? That Jack
Horner?
Jack Horner.
Yeah.
Jack Horner.
Big Jack Horner.
The worst, but also a very funny character.
Very funny. But I love what they do to fairy tales. I love what they do to fairy tales.
But I think one of the things he did is like he had all these people supporting him and around him. And I feel like...
I don't know if supporting him is the right term now.
They were his boss.
They were his slaves, essentially.
Basically.
But he had all these people building his empire. These people like there for him. Like they risked their lives to go with him.
That's such a strong support system.
I know, that's true. He had people holding him up, and it's like he could care less about them. It's like about me. Like we're all in my purpose, and if you're like a casualty, then you're a casualty. Yeah. And so I thought that was just interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
The Goldilocks side story was pretty powerful. This whole realization and this is totally spoilers. So, I mean, I think we've been doing that the whole time, but I figured I just
it's been out for a while.
Yeah. Okay. Whatever. If you haven't seen it yet, sorry. But Goldilocks, I love the twist on the fairy tale that they do, where in the traditional fairy tale of Goldilocks and the Three Bears, it villainizes the bears, but then they flip the table and the bears adopted her because she couldn't find her family. But the whole time she has this slightly dysfunctional, super hilarious, but like wonderful family that loves her. But the whole time her wish is to have her real family, or her, in this case, her human family. Yeah. And the closer to it is that she realizes that she had everything that she ever wanted already. She was just too focused on what she didn't have that she couldn't see what was right in front of her. So I thought that plot was like, wow, that was really powerful.
One thing to that too, I think with family, which I loved about it, is because I think in the world period, like family is not much normal anymore. Like sometimes you have a dad there, sometimes you don't. Sometimes you have a mom, and so sometimes I think we go through life living like I want a normal family. Like I just want normal. I know I fought with that, but then it's like, no, this is your family.
Dang,
like good. Love who's there, and so I thought about that too. I'm like, oh, we fight for normalcy, but like our family's our family. So
wow, that's good.
I think normal is a relative term too. Yeah. What we define as normal is completely abnormal for somebody else. Yeah. Right. Probably in different cultures, in different countries, everybody has a different definition. So we have our own desires and things we aspire to. But maybe the things we're aspiring to are not the real things actually that we're actually looking for.
So true.
Yeah. That's really good.
I actually wrote down for each of the four main characters that were going after the wish, kind of what was their ambition behind it. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. So the main character, obviously Puss, he wants to get his life back so he can live again without fear, right? That's his main purpose. I would guess if he had it, he'd probably live differently afterwards, but he just wants to be able to live without the fear of death chasing him. Kitty Softpaws, this was really powerful. She said she wants her wish to have somebody she can trust. Yeah. Because her heart's been broken. Big Jack wants all the powers that he can possibly have, right? He's a collector of magical things, right? So he wants all the powers to make sure he can get everything he wants at whatever cost, right? He's willing to sacrifice everybody around him for it. And Goldilocks is wanting a human family that she could fit in. I was trying to think about Perito, the little dog, but I think he's just here for the ride.
Yeah. He's like, hey,
I loved how when they give him the wish, because they're like, oh, you're the one who most deserves it. And he's like, I don't know what I would do with this, and gives it right back. It's like, that was so fun.
That's cute. Yeah, he's a good character. Is there one that stands out to you when I put it that way through that framework of their wishes? Which one would you go after?
I feel like there's one we missed. The family, the bear family. Because I think that they wanted, like, they were after the star too, but specifically for her. It's like, oh, we want her wish to come true.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's good.
That's awesome. Yeah.
We connect with more.
I think for me, the one that felt most powerful to me was the one about Kitty Softpaws, with her wanting to have somebody she can trust. And I don't think for her, there's a backstory, right? Where her and Puss were apparently supposed to get married, and then he walked away on the wedding day, which is hilarious to think about a cat wedding in the first place. And so she got her heart broken, and she feels all alone and feels like she has nobody. And I think for a big chunk of my life, that's been a struggle where not that I've been heartbroken, but I have a feeling of not fitting in. I'm sure a lot of people relate with that. But for a big part of my teens, that was a big part of my life. And then I think that shaped my adulthood, because my teens were so lonely. When I got to adulthood, I carried on essentially. So that wish to have somebody to know you can trust. Obviously, I'm married now, so I have someone.
Yeah. Your wish came true.
Yeah. And I have a dog who's very trustworthy.
I would say maybe more Goldilocks for me. I mean, I feel like I've been aspects of all of them, but Goldilocks, I think when I was younger, just because my family went through so much, there were so many times like the same, like I was saying earlier, normalcy. Can I have a sense of normalcy? And so I think I would relate more to her when I was younger. Now, I don't know. I have to think through. Yeah.
I'll backtrack a little bit in the story. When we first realized that there is this wolf that's chasing him. Later on in the story, you realize the wolf actually represents death. We thought he was just a mean bad guy, but it's actually death coming after him. So it's both a physical representation of death, but also a metaphorical representation for him. And so his first reaction is he goes to this cat lady's house, essentially, where he lives there for I don't know how long. He grows a long beard. And he just like becomes a blob, essentially, like a non-existent blob. And he's essentially dying to himself, like staying in that place. And then it becomes evident that it'd be better for him to take the risk than to stay there, essentially, for himself. What learnings do we get from that? Like what comes up to mind as I was thinking through that process?
I think it's really, really important to know that, like, if you live under a rock your whole life, you might not get hurt. You might not anything, but that's the negative. Like, you'll be alive, but for what? And I believe that we've been put here for a purpose. I believe that God has a plan for each and every one of the people that he's created in this world. And if you're not able to live out that purpose, you're wasting air, in a sense. And trying to find purpose is, I think, one of the biggest things in life. But like, when you're sometimes I've heard it put this way, like maybe I know I've struggled with this, and other people struggle with, like, when you start new relationships, friendships, et cetera, stuff like that, there's the risk of getting hurt always there in the end. Does that mean that you just shouldn't go out there and make friends, get close to people, because there's always going to be the prospect of getting hurt? I don't think so. I think that the reward outweighs the risk, the reward of having communion and community and closeness with people. And to not put an ultimatum on it. People can come and go in your life, but that doesn't mean that you give up the chance to have community. So it's kind of like that whole thing where if you chose to just hide and seclude, you're living, but if there's nobody to do it with, you're not able to build those relationships, then it's I don't know, seems boring.
Yeah.
I think fear too, like letting fear dictate your life. Like, he was afraid, so he went and hid. And so everything that was natural to him, that lady would like spray him with a spray bottle, because it like dictate, no, this is how you're going to live. This is how you're going to live. And I think that when you live in fear, it dictates like, okay, this is actually what I was called to do. This is what I am like wired to do, but I'm afraid. So fear is dictating me to do like the opposite. And so I kept seeing that the whole time. Like, when he was cooking at the stove, I was like, or like using the restroom or whatever, like she sprayed him. It's like so what funny. He is meant to do, like what he's natural to him is like no longer. Now he has to live like how fear is dictating him to live.
Ooh, that's
so yeah.
Ooh.
Wow.
Yeah, he becomes a slave to all these things.
Yeah.
Wow, essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Going back to what you're saying, it actually ties into something Pastor Felipe said in his message, which was that great purposes are always worth sacrificing for. And this is kind of part of the theme of this movie, where he's, at the end, he's willing to sacrifice his wish for the sake of friendship. He talks about, like, when it comes to relationships, it is worth the cost, right? It does require some sacrifice, but it's worth it, right? Even in this case, he gives up his personal security and he faces this fear essentially in order to be able to be his friends.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Good. All right. Well, I have one last question for you guys.
All right, here we go.
All right. This is the closer. If you could find the wishing star, what would your last wish be?
Oh, man. I was like, dang, it's
predictable, right?
I actually did. I think that.
Oh man, but yeah, I had an idea of that. That was, I have no answer for it presently, so I don't know. Anything?
Yeah, it's funny. I thought about that when I was watching the movie. I'm like, what would I wish for if I had the wishing star? And I'm like, I don't think I would wish for anything. It's like,
oh, come on. No, that's a cop-out.
I know, a cop-out, because when you think the genies who's like, if you have 3 wishes, what would you do? And then every time someone makes a wish, like, stuff is destroyed.
Infinite wishes.
I know. I was like, I don't want to destroy anything. I don't like, I don't know. Maybe a little bit more clarity. If that, like, I would love to walk through life like with very like clear clarity. And sometimes I feel like I don't, so that's weird. But it's like, hey, wishing star, can you give me clarity? Like, so everything I don't have to make decisions. I just know, because me making decisions is like hard.
That's pretty good. I don't have to ask questions. I just know. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I gotta just. It's the elephant in the room. Anytime you ask somebody, hey, what would you wish for? It's like, enough money to
Yeah,
to
the
like,
lottery.
just the lottery, like pay off all debts, live without. There's always that human temptation. Like, hey, will my wish would be, will my material needs be met?
Yeah.
And it's like, but and it just, you just gravitate towards that. So I just gotta address it. I mean, like, I'm no stranger to that desire too. Like, I think most people are guilty of going, okay, if without any strings attached, get something that would cover my material needs, I'd go for it.
Nice.
So, I mean, sure. Yeah.
Relieve that pressure and stress off your shoulders.
Yeah.
Well, my wish is that you subscribe to our YouTube channel. Don't miss the next episode because we're going to keep on doing this. But hey, Will, Mariah, thanks so much for joining us and being a part of this. Thank you all for tuning in and being a part. Hope that you were encouraged or even just had fun with us here. And come and join us again next time as we uncover the second movies for At the Movies. Second movie that we're going to be covering during At the Movies. And join us for our services at any of our locations. You can find those at Echo.Church. Or if you want to join us online at Echo.online.church, that's where you'll find our live online services during this series. Thanks so much for joining us, and hopefully we'll see you next time.
I might look like this.
That one.